Slacker Sports, episode number 5. The bowl game, it's coming.
Hello, Father. We are back today after a little bit of a break after the holidays. I meant. So today we're going to talk about Rutgers football a little bit. We're going to talk about Rutgers basketball. We went to the game against Mississippi State. Then we're going to talk about our playoff picks and see how we expect the college football playoff to shape up. And then we're going to finish off, as always, with the New York Jets.
The Jets.
See how we think about them. They have won 2 of the last 3. A little bit of a terrible game against the Dolphins, but those 2 wins have looked pretty good.
Okay, before getting into that though, let's get on to more important things. We've got our bowl game coming up. Rutgers versus the University of Miami, an old Big East foe that they're going to be playing. Never beat Miami. This is back when Miami was Miami. You know, top 10, top 5, top 2, top 1 team in the country. But now they come up to the Bronx, and they seem like they've got a few struggles going on. Isn't that right, Jack?
Yeah, they're missing. I mentioned this on an earlier podcast, but they're missing star quarterback Tyler Van Dyke, who transferred to Wisconsin, and it's crazy to see how depreciated this team is. I mean, they still have some good players on that team, but they're nowhere near the level that they were earlier this year, and especially after that Georgia Tech loss earlier in the year, which was a terrible loss where, they turned the ball over with 40 seconds to go and they should have just kneeled the ball down, and Georgia Tech went down the field 50 yards in 30 seconds and won the game in one of the worst coaching jobs I've ever seen.
Yeah, but with that said, they and that is our Miami University, graduate of the University of Miami, current head coach Mario Cristobal, who was an assistant under Greg Schiano on Schiano 1.0. Cuban, back to his alma mater. Very excited. He was at Oregon before. He's been to several different stops, including Alabama for a period of time. And he has ended up with a lot of W's over this period of time. And again, we'll always hold a grudge on him where when Coach Schiano left after 1.0, he was the pick to be the new head coach of Rutgers. Looked like everything was a signed, sealed deal. And then back in that time, with less media and social media, it was Mario's off, and we're looking for another head coach.
But to kind of rein the points back in here, this team fell apart after that loss and wound up at the point where they are 6-6, right? This was a team I believe was 4-1 or 5-1, something like that, at that point of that loss.
Yeah, it was the first loss, I believe.
Yeah. So that team fell off the rail a little bit after that. Again, they're playing with I believe their third string quarterback today.
That's correct.
Or on Thursday, and the big difference maker I think in that game is going to just be what I kind of mentioned is the fact that the Knights have retained so many guys this year. We've lost Max Melton, but I really can't think of another huge contributor that the Knights have lost. This team has retained so many guys we think that might have or could have gone to the NFL draft, and these guys said, "Hey, not only we want to play in the bowl game, we want to come back next year."
Yep.
So this is going to be a group of motivated guys. First bowl game in 9 years, or first time being bowl eligible in 9 years. They went to the Tax Layer Gator Bowl in 2021, but they weren't bowl eligible. They were 5-7.
Yeah.
So this is their first time.
COVID let them sneak in.
Yeah, this is the first time where they're playing in a bowl game that is they deserve to be in.
It's deserving, right? They made those 6 wins.
Yeah, they played good enough to get 6 wins this season, and that's going to be a motivated group of guys. That's going to be a group of guys that wants to be there in comparison to Miami, who's a group of guys who doesn't want to be there. They want to be other places, a lot of that team, and I think it will show on the field.
So it's interesting, right? I've been down this road, more times than you've been, where everything points to Rutgers, and then we get into the game, and the third string quarterback looks like he's going to be the Heisman candidate for next year, and the receiver who's only caught 75 yards for the entire season has 175 yards receiving in the game. So I'm always leery on that part. I think Mario Cristobal will have this team prepared for what's there. I think he's going to talk to them about how you're going up there against this Rutgers team, which a lot of these kids, may know the name but aren't looking highly on, and say you guys need to go up there and do your job and get ready for the kickoff for next year by winning this game and leading the University of Miami. He's going to be huge on it, right? He's had a very up and down year. He does not want to leave this game, however irrelevant it may be in the whole bowl scheme package, without a W. So I see it being a much tighter game, okay? I could see it being a nail-biter until that, second half of fourth quarter, but that's my initial takes on it. Any other takes that you have before we go into our picks?
Yeah. Just to bring in your point a little bit, my only issue with this is I genuinely believe that a lot of this game is going to be people playing for themselves almost, not playing for the team like I think Rutgers will. I think it's going to be a lot of players who maybe haven't declared in the portal yet because they don't have the film to really back it up. And these are players who will play in this game and will say, hey, I want to show that I'm good. So I think it's going to motivate some guys, but I don't think it's going to make the team a little bit more selfish than the Knights, where I think the Knights are playing for something bigger than themselves, and they truly believe that. Yeah,
listen, on paper, I totally agree with you. But then we've also seen what's happened with the Knights, like in our last scenario that we have this season against Maryland, right? I think at worst, it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a close game. Hopefully, we can win a nail biter. If not, maybe we even win by a touchdown or two, and kind of coast into the end. And again, the rails come off. We see a Maryland team that looks polished, well put together, and Rutgers just does not look prepared or ready to go in there. Now, I will say to you, because I've watched a lot of Greg Schiano Bowl games, I will tell you, I personally have never seen somebody have a team as prepared as he will have them. He has them ready for bowl games more than regular season games that I've seen. I don't expect anything different. I think he'll be ready to go, and that's why I think it'll be. I think they'll be ready to play. It's a question of, like you're saying, on paper, seems like Miami might be mailing us in. I'm just not quite. Mario Cristobal is a very competitive guy. He learned under the tutelage of Schiano. He is going to get those guys that he believes in ready for that game and ready to go. And I think this is going to be a lot tighter game than everybody thinks on that part.
All right, let's go into our picks.
Yep. What do you? I'll let you go first.
I'm going to go a little bit more radical here. I truly believe in the Knights of this game. Yeah, they struggled in the last 4 games of the year. They played their toughest 4 games of the season outside of Michigan. So my score prediction is going to be 20-7 in favor of the Knights.
Wow. Okay. So I see in terms of this game, I'm gonna lay out the picture of this. Right. It is going to be a run-heavy game.
Yeah.
I think what we think it's going to be. Will it be a little mix-up? Will it be a little razzle-dazzle? Yep. You're going to catch a little razzle-dazzle in this. All right. Like for example, you might have Gavin coming out in the first series and throwing. Okay?
Yeah.
And then a little bit less Monungai just to kind of loosen things up a little bit that's there. Wouldn't surprise me. And it wouldn't surprise me again on some few trick plays. But I think when it all settles down, it's going to be handing the ball off. It's going to be a lot of running. And the question is that line going to move that defensive line? That's what we're going to have to see. If it does, I will agree with you. If there's momentum in this game, and Rutgers can pick up on that momentum, then it might be an easy day where this, University of Miami team might start packing in. But when we're getting the 3 and outs, the first down, and then, 3 and out after that, it could be a lot tighter. So I'm going to sit there. I'm going to go with a 21-17 Rutgers win. Okay? And one where, we're holding on, hoping that Miami's not going to pull that last touchdown, okay, before the end of the game to spoil our day. That's there. That's kind of what I picture. But I think Miami's going to surprise us a little bit Hopefully not too much. And Rutgers, because listen, remember, this is huge, right? This will take a 6-6 team, make them 7-6. Great way to end the season. It starts to soften the blow on those last 4 losses and gets us ready for next year.
Yeah. I think one good point you brought up, I think those first 15 plays of the game are scheduled.
Yep.
So those plays have been practiced, you know what you're running, you know the play calls, and then after that you see how the defense is reacting, you see like what you want to do from there. I think that they're going to run a lot of bootlegs those first 15 plays. I think they're going to run the ball with Monunga, obviously, in those first 15 plays. But I think they're going to try and open up the passing attack so that the run game can be better. I don't know how well they'll do with it, but I think that's going to be the look that, the offense tries to go with the first 15 plays of the game.
It's also supposed to be pretty mild. I'm here about 55 degrees. Preference-wise, I don't want it to be, wouldn't want it to be 25, but something around 40 degrees, maybe 35, going up to 45 by game time. I would have preferred just to put a little chill in the University of Miami. Those boys are used to warm, sunny weather. Playing in something like this could be a little bit tougher for them, but it sounds like it's going to be a little bit more on the mild side, which for us who are going to be at the game, we'll definitely look to enjoy. So moving on, college football. We're in the thick of the bowl playoffs, but we said we're going to focus on really the bowls that matter besides the Pinstripe Bowl, of course. Talk to me about the championship series, what we've got there, and then into what your predictions will be for them.
All right. So your first game you have Michigan versus Alabama. And a repeat of the 2020 Citrus Bowl, I believe. And this game should be a good one, I think. Right? Alabama is really good. SEC champion Alabama. And Michigan is the number 1 team in the country. And they deserve to be the number 1 team in the country. They're a team that has a top 10 quarterback in college football. And they can still, as they did against Penn State, beat you by not even throwing the ball. That's how good this team is. Why? They have one of the best running backs in the league in college football, in Blake Corum. So they're going to beat you multiple different ways. That offensive line has been one of the best units in college football for the last few years. Harbaugh will have this team prepared for that game. I believe that truly. But that's not to discredit the Crimson Tide, right? They won the SEC championship for a reason. They beat the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs, who were on, I believe, a 29-game winning streak and back-to-back national championships. Jalen Milroe is playing his best football of the year this late into it, right? Had a great game against Auburn. Had a so-so, I'd argue, game against Georgia. Played good where it mattered. But that's what expected. It was his first game on that high of a level, right? He had never played a championship game before. So he got some of those years out. I think he'll play better in this game. So I think you're looking at both sides. Obviously, the Alabama offense is really good. Obviously, the Michigan offense is really good. Obviously, the Alabama defense is really good. Obviously, the Michigan defense is really good. These are just 4 really good sides of the ball, no matter what way you look at it. Filled with NFL talent. And this, I think, is going to be one of the best bowl games we're going to see all year. My score prediction is going to be, I'll go 35-31 in favor of Michigan. I think it'll be a really close game. I think, I don't think either team's going to be unprepared at all, right? We saw the way Michigan reacted to hearing Alabama was in the 4th slot. They weren't happy to see it. They wanted to be Florida State. This is a team that it knows who they're facing, and I think Alabama also knows who they're facing, so I think it's going to be a tight game.
So, I agree with you. It's going to be a big game. I echo what you said, regarding, Michigan, between the running back and their quarterback. They've got some, elite athletes. I am old school when it comes to Alabama, and my rule of thumb is don't bet against the Crimson Tide, especially when they're trending, which is where they are right now. Like you said, the quarterback is playing some of his best football. They've got the best coach in college football. I think you have to really look closely at that. Beating Georgia, we've talked about this, off the air before. I think that is literally the pinnacle win. Now, the question is, you get up for that, can they get up for this game? The answer is yes, they will get up for this game. I think them playing in a more of an underdog role does a really good situation, okay, for Alabama, because they're usually not in that role. So being in this, basically going against the number one team, which you can make an argument would be the team that, before the college football playoffs on it, would be the team that you'd want to be lined up against to play. Because you'd say whoever wins is going to win the national championship on this. Yes, things have changed. It's not that way anymore, but I think it's highly motivating. I don't see as high of a scoring game. Okay, I see, and I'm going to go a little bit outside the box, and I'm going to go again with the 21-17 Alabama win.
All right. I'm going to disagree with you there, but let's go into the second game here.
Okay.
You have the Washington Huskies versus the Texas Longhorns. And this game, actually, although everything I hyped up about the last one, I'm more excited to see this game. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch. Really high scoring, two very dynamic, explosive offenses. Washington with Michael Penix Jr. and Romeo Odunze as their 1-2 punch, and Texas with Quinn Ewers and Malik Neighbors. My apologies. Xavier Worthy. Malik Neighbors is on LSU.
Okay.
So this is just gonna be two explosive offenses. We saw how Texas played in the Big 12 championship. We saw how Washington played in the game that they weren't favored in the Pac-12 championship. So Washington has looked like they come out for these big games this season. So has Texas, right? Only loss is the Red River Showdown against Oklahoma, which is a huge rivalry game, and Washington hasn't lost. So these are two really, really, really good offenses. I think it's going to be an incredibly high-scoring game, and my lead is going to be 49-42 in favor of the Texas Longhorns.
Wow. So, that's a lot of points. Okay, I think there's more. I think there's more defense that's there. I do agree with you that it's definitely going to get aired out. In terms of this one, it's definitely going to be an air assault that will be going on with these two teams. So it's funny. Penix Jr. is definitely the guy I would like to see win. That's kind of where my heart goes with. Hard to go against Texas. When you look at what the guns are that Texas has and where they come in, I'm gonna go with a 34-27 Texas win. Hoping I'm wrong and that Washington figures out a way to beat some of the Blue Bloods and comes out with a W. But it's a hard one to really see that happening and where that's going to play out.
Yep. So, do you want to go to our national championship preview based on the two games we saw?
I think that's a good place to lead in.
So, I have the number 1 Michigan Wolverines versus the number 3 Texas Longhorns. And this game, I think, if it winds up being this game, is a fun game to watch. Right? You have that dynamic offense. You have a really good Michigan defense. You have a really good dynamic Michigan offense. And it's a question of, does Harbaugh get over the hump this year with all the struggles? This is a Michigan team that truly believes it's Michigan against the world.
It does.
You have to remember that when you're walking into this game. Like, this Michigan team truly does believe it's us against the world. Everyone hates us. We have to play for ourselves. Right? So there's this mentality, I think, with that. But then I also think Texas is taking an underdog mentality in this, right? Yes, they're one of the blue blood programs in college football, you could argue, but they haven't been good in 10, 15 years. They went through a really long spout where they were bad at football.
Yep.
So you're going to look at this. I think both teams would walk into this game with chips on their shoulder. They'd be like, hey, we haven't done this. I think it would be a really cool moment for Quinn Ewers, a Texas kid, went to Ohio State, came back, and now he's brought in this Texas program back to national prominence and back to a national championship. So I think it's going to be a really, really close game. My lead is, I'll go 35-28 in favor of Michigan.
Okay, so let me ask you the curveball question. I'm right. Alabama knocks off Michigan. It's Alabama against Texas. We both agreed on Texas being the winner. What happens in that? What will be your prediction in that game?
I think you got to go Texas in that scenario. Why? We've already seen that game, and we saw it in Tuscaloosa.
Good point.
And Texas was the 10-point winner there. So,
but is this a different Alabama team?
This, I would argue, actually is a different Alabama team, right? Alabama, the week after they played Texas, only beat USF by 10 points. So this is definitely a different Alabama team than what we've seen. But I really do believe that I don't think it's a large enough difference, especially with how good Texas is playing at this point in the year, to make a 10-point difference. And I would take Texas by like 3 in that game.
All right. Staying with who I predicted on Alabama and Texas on here, I think Alabama is really trending in the right direction. I think they're starting to hit on all cylinders. I think after they beat Michigan, they're going to be on top of the world and really believe they can beat anybody. And I see this being, again, like a 31-28 game in favor of Alabama. I'm going Alabama all the way.
All right. My father has Alabama and the 4th seed winning for, I want to say the first time since the inception in 2014.
And anyone could do it for 4th seed, it would be Alabama. You have to agree on that.
Yeah.
It's not preposterous what I'm saying.
It definitely isn't.
No.
It definitely is not, but it would be interesting to see in the last season of the 14 playoff, especially with this being 4 good teams. We talked about the FSU controversy. They're doing a lot of things, right? They're suing the ACC to try and get out here. So there's a lot of controversy with that. But I think this is the 4 best teams in. It's going to be 4 really good games. You're looking at the best teams in college football playing in the college football playoff, which is what anyone wants.
You've been talking about that for a while now. That's what we need, and it seems like at the end of the day, that's what we got.
Yep.
Okay, so predictions on the college football championship. Jack Kapic is in a scenario where he thinks Michigan versus Texas. I'm going in with an Alabama versus Texas. And how that's going to end up playing out. So we will, as the saying goes, we will just have to see. Wanted to grab into a quick note on Rutgers basketball. So
all right.
We had the Gotham tournament over at the Prudential Center, the Rock in Newark, and we were there, and they were playing Mississippi State Rutgers basketball. Interesting. Out of the gun, both teams shooting really well, fast moving, fast pace. Rutgers is down by 5 going into the half. Makes a 2-point shot, steals one, does a 3-point bomb at the end, hits it, ties up. It's 29-all. Excited for the second half, and then they come out and it's just a thud.
Yep.
Okay, that's there. Thoughts on this game? Thoughts on any of the guys, in terms of what you got here on what they were able to do and also what they were not able to do and what was disappointing, in terms of how this stuff all ran.
Yeah, I think if we're going to go with this terminology, I think the big winner for Rutgers from that game is Andre Hyatt. He had a great game, 18 points, I believe, hit that big shot before half.
Yeah.
Right, he played really good. He was shooting the ball very efficiently. Seemed to be making almost everything he was shooting. Played one of the better games and more complete games I've seen from him as a Scarlet Knight. So that's the good takeaway from it. The bad takeaway is team looked a little flat. Cliff Amore wasn't on the court that much, and honestly, when he was on the court, he didn't look too good. He had 4 fouls, got into foul trouble really early. It caused us to have Anton Woolfolk on the court a lot. He's, again, still I'd argue a developmental guy, right? He's not someone who we want out there for 20 minutes a night. We want Cliff out there for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think all of these became issues. So I think the team looked a little flat. The guard play wasn't great. Noah Fernandez, I don't think was great. I want to see Derek Simpson play better than what he is right now. I expected him to take a big jump up this season after what we saw at the end of last year, and he really hasn't done that. So, I'm a little disappointed with what I saw in our first game in person watching them. But I do think that as we get into Big Ten play, this team will start playing better.
So, it's just across the board, just touching on some of the things you talked about. Cliff just didn't seem comfortable out there. Cliff is still, Cliff of years past, under the hoop, pass to him, layup. Under the hoop, horrible on offensive rebounding. Nobody's around the hoop. And I got to go back to Coach Pike on that. I mean, it's obviously that is how they're running it. I mean, it's not a question of there's guys around and they're just not in position, not catching the ball. There's nobody around the hoop. I mean, it's nuts. And Mississippi State was getting a ton of offensive rebounds.
Yeah, they dominated the rebounding game. No.
What's interesting, we've talked a lot about, as everybody else has, about next year and what next year is going to bring. And, and it's also been said, Gavin Griffith is one of the highest, that we've had in terms of recruits, literally the highest. And he at times seems very lost out there. I understand he's a freshman and he's getting up to speed, but, if this is the best coming in and he seems lost at times, it's very concerning. I also want to bring up the point that, we won against LIU, which is expected that if we didn't win that game, it would have been a disaster. We beat Seton Hall decisively, okay, even though it got a little squeamish there at the end, and we hit a boatload of threes. And my point I want to bring up with that game is that, there was definitely talk about us only beating LIU, and then we beat Seton Hall, and I'm like, oh, wait, this is really good. I think, I'm starting to feel like that Seton Hall game was a bit of an anomaly. That it was just a situation where we got, a lot of threes hit and going. The other games, where we are, so we went 2 for 4 out of that stream, with LIU being the one that was a guarantee to begin with. And then, we do really nice against Seton Hall, but Wake Forest and, and then against this Mississippi State was definitely a winnable game, or at least a close nail-biter at the end. We ended up losing by 10, and we could easily lose by 15 coming in the end. So I'm just really concerned this team, and I want to pose a question back to you, Jack, is that, we talk about Ace Bailey, we talk about Dylan Harper, statement I'm constantly hearing, which will be the first in my lifetime in covering Rutgers and watching them, is one and done, right? And for folks out there, one and done means Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey may only be there for 1 year and then go to the NBA. I'm wondering, is this Rutgers current team one and done? Okay? Meaning that with the team that's coming in, yes, there'll of course be some people that are going to remain, but I'm going to be honest with you. Watch this team real closely, because you're not going to see this team next year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think the core of this team is going to change next year, right? You got a lot of really touted recruits, right? Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, the forefront of those recruits. And so this team is definitely going to change a lot going into next year. You're definitely going to see a lot of new faces. It's going to take a second for Rutgers fans to get used to. And to your point, the only thing I'll argue with these guys being like these one-and-done players is that's not really what we expected from Gavin Griffiths, right? I think you're having a little bit of unrealistic expectations with him. He was, low 5 to high 4-star recruit is what I've seen in the recruiting websites from him.
I've only seen 4, so I don't know. You've seen some 5s for him?
I remember when he came out, there were some people who said he was a 5. I've only seen 4, to be honest with you, but I've heard people call him a 5, so I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I've heard it. So he wasn't this one-and-done type player. He's a really highly touted recruit, but don't expect him to come in and be an elite-level player, right? He played really good against, I believe, Boston earlier in the year. He's still adjusting to the college game. We should expect him as a 7th or 8th man on that bench to, come in, maybe drop 9-10 points, but he's not going to...
But he's not.
But it's also
he's not the 7th or 8th guy.
It's also still early enough in this season where I still believe he can...
Well, yeah, but let's stay on that point for a second. And this kind of goes back to a key thing. he's not the 7th or 8th guy off the bench, Jack. All right? He's in the starting lineup, or he is, after the first 5, coming in number 6, maybe number 7, playing a lot of time. And I agree with, so I just want you to understand, I agree with you. I agree he should be that guy. That might be the 8th man out, maybe the 9th guy out in the beginning of the season. And then as the season goes along, hopefully start working him up in, maybe not even the top 10, but maybe the first guy off the bench, maybe the second guy off the bench, right? He's not that, which really worries me about where this team is. After the Seton Hall game, it's like, all right, it's almost like, all right, take a breath. Cliff's pulling it back together. Guys are doing what they're supposed to. Gavin Griffith looks like he's pulling himself together. I think this team has a lot of potential. And then you watch the Mississippi State game, and, you talk about them coming out flat. I just see a disorganized team that hasn't found its flow.
I think a part of that is to do with the Mawat Mag injury and him not playing too much to start this season off. I think we're still seeing the lingering effects of that and why Gavin Griffith is playing more. And this team is not at the quality of the teams we've seen in the past, right? We've lost players. We lost Cam Spencer, we lost Paul Mulcahy. We lost a lot of guys that were key contributors for years. And this team has struggled because of it. But I do think that overall, I think that they will find their footing this season. I don't think this team is a complete, for lack of better words, crapshoot. And I don't think that they're going to completely fall off the rails here. I think that they will get back into form for Big Ten play. I believe in Pike enough to, get those guys ready and to play good basketball.
Okay, so on that part of it, Wednesday, January 3rd, okay, will be the first Big Ten game. We have one before, that's Stonehill at Rutgers, and then Rutgers is going to be on the road at Ohio State. Okay, and then home for Iowa. Okay, after that, back to back. So I guess we'll get to see. Didn't want to spend that much time on basketball. Just wanted to touch on it briefly. Glad we got into it. I think it's important for the fans to know where this part of it's going. I think we are ready for what gets Jack Kapik always very excited. Likes to finish it up. I will tell everyone, who, since you can't see us on here, we will be back with some video coming soon. We're working on that. But Jack Kapik right now is dressed in all green. With that lead-in, it is time to discuss the Jets.
The Jets are interesting, right? Because I've seen, in the last 3 weeks, it's perfectly described the New York Jets. We've seen the highs, we've seen the lows. We've seen the highs of highs and lows of lows.
Those are lows are low.
Right, we saw a 30-6 win against a good Texans team, a Texans team who's competing for a playoff spot right now, tied for the lead in the AFC South. That division game really tight. It's the first and top three teams in the division are all tied for the first spot. So we saw them beat that team convincingly, 30-6. They dropped 30 points and a half. Zach Wilson won Player of the Week in the AFC. The offense looked like they were actually doing things. Zach Wilson looked like a competent quarterback. And the team looked good. Then we saw them go to Miami, and the offense looked terrible. Zach Wilson got a concussion. They played not good football, for lack of better words. They
got destroyed.
The line was pummeled from the get-go. That pass rush was too much for them, and the team looked terrible. Then this past week, right, they started the game off 27-7 in the first half. They're dominating the Commanders. They look unstoppable. Right?
Let's not forget, it was the Commanders.
It was the Commanders, but they
AKA Washington Redskins.
They looked unstoppable. The first series of the game, picked off. The second series of the game, blocked punt. That turned into a quick 10 points for the Jets. Right? Then Breece Hall got a rushing touchdown. That was 17. This team, the Jets looked unstoppable. Right? Remember, up to that point, they had one first quarter touchdown the entire year, and they had 2 in that first quarter alone. So,
and then what do we know, Jake Kapik?
The offense looked really good. And then the Washington Commanders.
Jets.
The Washington Commanders made some changes to their team. Jacoby Brissett came in for Sam Howell. Sam Howell had played terribly to that point. And they mounted a comeback. They made that game 28-7 27 at a point, right? Trevor Siemian threw a terrible pick in the red zone.
The game looked like it was over.
Trevor Siemian threw a terrible pick in the red zone before that. Obviously the Jets are going to struggle when they're on their fourth string quarterback, right? Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, and Trevor Siemian. This is their fourth string quarterback, people.
Jake Halbeck, did you get a call for the practice squad?
I pretty much might. So he threw a terrible pick. To be expected for him not to play great. And they mounted a comeback, right? 28-27 it was at a point. However, he did drive them down the field for a game-winning drive. Greg the Leg kicked what I want to say is a 59-yarder. And the Jets barely squeaked one out against the Commanders.
What's the name of the Jets punter? We have to acknowledge this man. This man is literally, the kicker.
Greg Zerline, Greg the Leg.
Greg Zerline. Greg the Leg, if you're listening to this podcast, Greg, I have to tell you, in many, many years of watching all this, okay, you are clearly the MVP, okay? You are a guy that has done unbelievable, the consistency, everything. Can't say enough about you. You are what epitomizes a great kicker, and definitely something that does not epitomize the Jets, okay? Would you agree, Jake?
Yeah, he's a great kicker. One of the best in the league, for sure. And he's doing this at, what I want to say, is 36 years old. So...
yeah, it says a lot for the guy. So what do we got with the Jets going forward? Are we focusing on draft picks, Jake Halbeck, or, do you have that Aaron Rodgers guy coming off the bench?
As a fan of the team, I want it to win games, even if it gets a little bit of a worse draft pick. You could make the very strong argument if the Jets don't win some games down the stretch last year and they lose some of those, Aaron Rodgers could still be playing right now, right? They could have gotten a better lineman. Maybe he doesn't tear his Achilles on the fourth play of the game. So, all these things were possible. But the Jets, I want to see them win games. I want to see them play well. I like Saleh still. They have the Browns and their old quarterback, Joe Flacco, on Thursday.
Who's looking like a Heisman Trophy.
He's looking amazing considering the fact that this man literally hasn't... this man was out of the league. He was on his couch a few weeks ago.
And he played for the Jets at one point.
And as soon as last season. And he is playing really good football, playing some of the best football of his career at 38, coming off the couch. So... shout out to him. The Jets will be playing the 9-5 Browns this Thursday night in a game that they'll look to win. So you're still looking to win games, obviously, at this point. You're never going to want to lose games. And I truly believe that the Jets still can win some games down their stretch. 2 left. I think if we can finish 7-10, you're going to look at this and you're going to roll your eyes because, we wanted to be that record flip, right? You want to be 10-7 at this point in the season, not 7-10. But hey, what are you gonna do? Right?
9-10, Jack? 9-10.
9-10. There you go. And this, you're gonna be a little bit disappointed if you looked at it from the beginning of the year. If you told me in September, Jack, you're only gonna finish 7-10, I would say 7-10 again. Really? But with how the way everything's shaped out. It will mean that the team didn't completely fall off the rails, even if they did for a while.
All right, Jake Halbeck. So we've got the rundown for the Jets. We're both picking Rutgers in the upcoming bowl game, which should be very exciting for those of you who have not lined up your tickets. Still tickets available. Get out to that game. Support your state of New Jersey football team. Any last thoughts before we cut out here?
I think I'm all good, Father.
All right. We'll be looking forward to speaking to you.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Very important. And yes, we're back in the groove.